Known British terrorist Charles Rain is responsible for numerous explosions, murders, and other horrific crimes, etc. He has a criminal history, but he has never been apprehended. In actuality, Charles is a master escape artist who used cunning and strength to resist capture. In the opening scene, he is surrounded by medical professionals in a surgical room. It turns out that Charles is about to have a procedure done to drastically alter the appearance of his face. He's about to do it for the 10th time. Charles declines when the chief physician asks whether he needs any anesthetic to handle the agony, saying that he enjoys it. He wants to be fully cognizant throughout the procedure. Police officers have gathered outside the structure in the interim. They've received information regarding Charles' whereabouts, and now they're ready to rush the operating room and catch him. The top cop cautions everyone, however, that Charles is a lethal assassin who is capable of eliminating multiple guys by himself before they begin the mission. They eventually make their way up to the 13th level, where the surgery will be performed slowly. Charles, unfortunately, is ready for them. He kills the top doctor as soon as the police come in, escapes through the hallway after dodging the hail of gunshots. Then Charles breaks a glass pane and leaps from the building. And even though he is free falling from the 13th story, he falls safely. Even when running at full speed, he can jump off buildings like it's nothing for him. No matter how quickly he flees, the police are pursuing him in their cars and eventually corner him. After 15 years of evasion, the infamous Charles Rain is finally captured in this fashion. The scene suddenly changes to an airliner where Marta, a stunning flight attendant, is examining each passenger individually. Everything seems to be going according to plan until a suspicious-looking man suddenly pulls a gun and kidnaps her. If his demands are not satisfied, he threatens to kill her. Marta simply kicks him in the leg in reaction, giving another passenger a chance to take the gun away from him. Everyone then applauds as it is ultimately made clear that the entire incident was only a drill for teaching the flight attendants self-defense. John Cutter, a veteran soldier and former Secret Service agent who is renowned for taking a firm stance against serious offenses, is the shady-looking man. After some time, Sly Delvecchio, the general manager of Atlantic International Airlines, shows up and departs with John. The two appear to be close friends. John declines Sly's request to return to the business and continue serving the country. He says he no longer wants to put his life at danger for others. Sly still offers him a position leading the anti-terrorism division at Atlantic International Airlines. When John is informed that he just needs to work twice a month, he mulls it over for a while before accepting. Charles is led to his cell, where his lawyer is waiting for him at another location. The latter reveals that they intend to transport him to California, where they would put him to death via chair. Charles can only escape if he claims to be insane. Sadly, the infamous terrorist doesn't take the advice well and slams the lawyer on the table while stating, "I am not mad." The following scene shows a shirtless John reflecting and thinking back on his history. The scene then cuts to John and his late wife shopping in a convenience store a few years ago. Unexpectedly, a thief shows in and makes an effort to take money from the counter. John tries to stop the robber because he is a man of integrity, but the robber is holding his wife hostage. Everyone in the store moves away, but the robber still shoots the helpless woman. When John finally kills him, his wife has already passed away when he goes back to check on her. He was so severely affected by the event that he was forced to resign from his position as a special agent and spend months by himself. John is getting ready for his first day of work in the present. He has to protect a sizable Lockheed airplane with around 200 passengers while maintaining his secrecy. John is given seat number 57, thus the film's name. Charles and two FBI agents coincidentally board the aircraft, indicating that the flight is bound towards California. Marta is one of the flight attendants. Sabrina, a stunning young woman, is the other. The young child spots Charles in the meantime and shoots an imagined bullet at him. The cold-blooded killer responds by feigning death. But as he shoots the youngster again, his handcuffs are shown, alarming the passengers close by. They begin to worry about the safety of the flight, but Sabrina reassures them that they need not be concerned. After some time, she contacts a staff member in the lower deck who has a strange appearance and requests that he send the special service over. In response, the man places a metal briefcase on the serving tray. John gets up at the same time and goes to the bathroom to seek some alone time because he is annoyed by his chatty seatmate. Sabrina gets the contents of the metal box after he closes the door and discovers that it contains a gun. To everyone's surprise, she then moves towards the two innocent FBI agents and shoots them in the head. 3 of Charles' men stand up from their seats once he is released from his handcuffs and scare everyone with silence. It becomes clear at this point that Charles had everything prepared in advance. He promptly hired some individuals to hijack the plane after learning that the agents were accompanying him on it. In the following scenario, Charles enters the cockpit and kills one of the pilots to demonstrate his power. Suddenly, he makes a radio announcement that they are changing course and that the aircraft has been formally hijacked. No damage will come to the passengers, though, if they maintain their composure and follow his instructions. John, who is still in the bathroom, hears everything and becomes alarmed. He manages to grab a hold of the plane's in-flight phone and calls his pal Sly to explain the situation. He then skillfully pulls down one of the hijackers, grabs his rifle, and uses him as a shield to attack Charles. The latter snags Marta as well, setting up a dramatic confrontation between the two. Charles quickly releases the flight attendant, though, and shoots an innocent guy to make his point. The next shot he fires is intended for John, but it mistakenly kills one of his goons. John and Marta take advantage of the chaos to flee, get in the elevator, and ride it all the way down to the cargo hold. They approach the suspicious-looking man from before and ask him if he knows anything about the hijackers when they are there. The man acts astonished, but when the opportunity arises, he pulls a knife and tries to stab John. The two then fight fiercely, and our protagonist ultimately succeeds in knocking the evil guy out with a powerful kick. John suggests they dump all the fuel and make an emergency landing after Marta ties him up. They then go to the avionics part of the aircraft. Marta vehemently disagrees with the concept because a collision is a possibility. She lets John go, nevertheless, after he argues that it is their only option. The two move toward the landing gear once the gasoline is nearly gone, since that is the safest place to leap out of the jet without suffering severe damage. Thankfully, the strategy succeeds, and Charles instructs the pilots to make an emergency landing at the closest airport when he discovers that they are running low on fuel. The hijacked aircraft is getting ready to land at a little airfield near Lake Lucille, Louisiana, as Sly and his bosses learn at the Atlantic International headquarters. Therefore, without spending any time, Sly hops on a helicopter and takes off towards the destination. John and Marta are waiting for the plane to land so they can leap out of it in another location. The two are about to jump out of the plane when one of the hijackers ambushes them from behind. A short while later, the plane finally comes to a stop. Marta is held hostage once more while John is thrown out of the aircraft. Despite John's best efforts to assert that he was the head of security on the aircraft, two police officers show up at the site and detain him right away. Charles calls the control tower as he is being led away, and Mr. Biggs, the head sheriff, responds right away. Charles makes it plain that the plane needs to be refueled within 10 minutes. He pledges to free 100 passengers in exchange. Charles kills 5 passengers to make a point after the sheriff declines to accept the bargain. Mr. Biggs is so terrified by this that he ultimately gives the go-ahead for the plane to be refueled. After a while, Mr. Biggs and John are both convinced that John is one of the evil guys when they bring him to the control tower. When the crafty Charles phones him again and claims that John is one of his men who fled after betraying him, his concerns are finally verified. When Mr. Biggs learns of this, his officers are instructed to lock John in the basement, but John impressively repels them before grabbing a police motorcycle and riding to the airport. Charles releases the promised 100 passengers after the plane has been refueled. Yet, he also sneaks out with the man who has a dubious appearance and another man by taking advantage of the uproar. The three proceed to a local fair after that. When the FBI does show up at the control tower, they demand a thorough report on the situation from Mr. Biggs. The head agent becomes irate and eventually admits that John is one of them when the sheriff states that they beat up and captured John Cutter. John is discreetly pursuing Charles and his guys somewhere at the carnival fair because he is still determined to catch them. Sadly, his cover is exposed, and one of the hijackers makes an unsuccessful shot at him. A complete state of mayhem results when an innocent person is shot. John is being followed by one of the hijackers as he mounts a Ferris wheel in the meantime. A little altercation breaks out between the two, leading to the man being thrown off the Ferris wheel and dying instantly. After that, John leaps atop the unaware Charles and eventually manages to control him. Sly Delvecchio shows there as the FBI and the local police carry him away and congratulates his pal for taking down the terrorists. They were unaware that the issue was far from solved, though. Charles issues a threat to the officers, saying that if they don't let him go, his goons will begin killing the passengers one by one inside the aircraft. John tries to reason with him out of wrath, but to no avail. The FBI and the other officials so decide to let Charles back onto the aircraft because they are left with no other choices. They do, however, have a thought. Charles and the other hijackers will be assassinated as soon as they come into view by snipers stationed atop a neighboring building. John is given the task of managing the entire mission. In the following scene, 2 FBI agents guide Charles to the plane, but just as they are ready to board, snipers open fire on them. The suspicious-looking man from before has apparently murdered the initial snipers and is now killing all the FBI agents, it turns out. Soon after, a shootout breaks out between the hijackers and the agents, which leads to the deaths of several people, including the man with the odd appearance. While the jet begins to flee, John is not about to give up so simply. He urges Mr. Biggs to track the plane as he and Sly get into his car. The goal is to seize the retractable landing gear and climb inside the aircraft using it. Even though the stunt is very risky, Mr. Cutter can pull it off with ease. He holds onto the landing gear with ease, as if it were his daily bread and butter. He enters and murders one of the hijackers in the cargo hold. He then sneaks up behind Sabrina and knocks her unconscious. The legendary Charles is currently the lone remaining hijacker. John goes to the cockpit, however, and orders the passengers to change course and return to the Lake Lucille airstrip before confronting him. The decisive showdown then starts. Charles matched John stride for stride despite the fact that John is a skilled fighter. Air pressure in the aircraft is lost after a window is broken during their fight by a stray gunshot. Marta, who was standing very next to the main door, is left hanging for her life. The main door is also destroyed. Thankfully, John moves swiftly and brings Charles close to the damaged escape. The two then trade a few more strikes before John successfully extricates the terrorist from the aircraft. Now that he is dead, the chaos is finally ended, and all of the passengers celebrate by performing embarrassing dance moves. The moment John informs his bosses in the control tower that he has defeated Charles, they are filled with elation. The plane ultimately lands in the last scene, and everyone is led to safety. John, who has had enough of the chaos, walks away with Marta without even bothering to look the reporters in the eye. As the film comes to a close, Sly is talking to the media and adamantly claiming that he was in command of the entire operation.